Welcome, everyone. This is Carolyn Egan, sales consultant with Omnia Group. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be going over creating a sales culture, really coaching folks to sell, your service folks, your non-sales team, because obviously sales is focused on sales, but other departments are an integral part of the growth and success of your organization. So with further ado, I'm going to get started, but little housekeeping items. Lower below the PowerPoint presentation, you'll see where it says questions and comments. Type them here. You're free to type any questions or comments throughout the presentation. But I will leave time at the end of the presentation to answer any specific questions. And with that said, when talking with our service departments, our finance teams, anyone outside of sales, this is the reaction I typically get is, you want me to do what? Where it's too high pressure, it just doesn't feel good. I've been told it's icky or they're not salespeople. There's all different types of reactions, but typically this is what we get. We get freak out or I'm not going to do that. So how to cushion that or how to present it differently. Um, because sales truly isn't about trying to um, present a product or an idea or a concept to someone and convince them. Those ideologies are long gone. We're really looking at moving sales and a sales culture into identifying customers' needs and meeting those needs and exceeding those needs. And that doesn't happen with just the sales team. That happens with every department working together. So with that said, I always like to start off with stories. Um, Done some research with the RV industry, and we've been working a long time in the RV industry. And one of the online resources was cited by Tom Gossner, that one issue he found, I'm quoting him, that's consistently surfaced was the category of problems that were related to RV dealers, and many complained of bad dealer experiences, including such concerns specifically in high pressure sales, the lack of product knowledge, and not matching the RVer's needs with the right type of style or brand of RV, and especially not following through with after sales assistance. So that was their main focus, and those are probably every other dealer's focus, and a lot of different dynamics and different organizations' focus as well. That after sales experience and that pre experience as well. So with that said, moving to um, the sales team, the perception of the sales, and the perception not just the sales team, excuse me, but of sales. So asking to offer a service as an added value on the service or a warranty or in finance. I mean, focusing on those different outside of the sales team's area, creating that sales culture where everybody's a salesperson from the receptionist to the F&I to service. Is their perception could be that sales are too pushy. But the perception of the salespeople of these different teams are that the support people or the support departments are too picky. Um, they're too detail oriented. They need more information. And they take a long time. They may be considered defensive and maybe just ask way too many questions. Um, that's could be in general, and that's what we've found with some salespeople because they're very fast-paced. They're very much thick-skinned, visionary, people-oriented, and don't necessarily find energizing information and details. They're more of that people person finding the needs and moving on. So, having that perception of the salespeople with the support is something we need to overcome. That's an obstacle. Also, on the other hand, the support team, the service team, F&I, logistics, deliverables, manufacturing, any other type of other support mechanism within your organization or dealership, those salespeople, they're too demanding. They overpromise. They're unorganized. They don't, they miss signatures on the sales contracts, or they told me that the appointment was tomorrow, and not yesterday. Um, these are all the different types of um, feedback we get from the different support teams. That the sales team, they wait till the last minute to present the needs of their customers, and it's oftentimes incomplete information. They don't have all the information they need. So, how to address this? Really focusing on creating that sales culture within your organization is looking at the differentiations between the dynamics and the personality dynamics, the motivating dynamics. The entrepreneur is very competitive. They're outgoing, they're fast-paced individuals who are very decisive and self-managing. So the perception of the alternative behavioral traits or preferences and motivators can be perceived as pushy. But what motivates these folks, and typically in sales or and maybe in a department you've identified that really that leader, that go-getter that takes a new initiative or a new product or service and reads about it, gets really educated about it, becomes what we call an expert or a subject matter expert, then they can be consistent to that change and they're more motivated by that change. They're motivated by advancement, public recognition, and frequent feedback. So typically in our sales folks, we do that, short-term goals, give them some autonomy, let them run, give them the parameters that they can work in, and they would not be motivated um, to not opportunities for compensation for performance, whether it's time off or recognition, that type of thing. Um, if they're left alone for long periods of time, they get demotivated. They need to be around people, their salespeople or their customers, their clients. That's what energizes them. And a lot of bureaucracy where if there's, oh, well, we need this approved first, and then we need to do this, or too much routine and structure, or meeting or reports, definitely not motivating to them. So really knowing good communication style with these types of individuals and having your support staff learn a little bit about these types of dynamics helps them understand. I'm a story person, so I'm going to give you a story between sales and finance in a completely different industry sector, but it's applicable to matter what if you're in advertising, dealerships, RVs, you name it, healthcare, is that the sales team felt like they had roadblocks given to them by the support staff because of quality assurance requirements for specifics that were compliance oriented, so clearly needed to happen, and contractual things that needed to happen. And sales just felt like there was too much red tape. They weren't able to get to their numbers or to be productive and do what they enjoy and meet the needs of their numbers, their individual and team numbers. And I'm using the terminology that a salesperson would use. On the flip side, the support and the finance F&I team clearly saw that there was the requirements and they understood. So what really had to happen is a quick 5-minute huddle. We went over to the finance team. The finance team physically showed them what this was causing, this roadblock it was causing by not having this compliance, the signatures in the right time in the right place could have on the organization and on the customers and clients. The salespeople understood, and so did the finance team. They understood that the salespeople weren't doing it out of spite, or they didn't care, or they just weren't, it was just throwing it to the wind. It was that they didn't see the value in it, what was in it for them, because they're motivated by those personal challenges. And so with that dynamic between those two teams completely changed. They became partners with their customers and really grew that organization and that location to 5 out of 258 teams. So, and that was done between those two teams together. So it has to be that they understand the differences between them, their personal preferences. A loyal team, really the supporters or the administrators type of category. They're really good listeners, they're patient, they're thorough, exactly what you need in service, exactly what you need in support and administration and developers and all of that. You need people that they're motivated by small challenges, team goals, prefers working in a relatively solitude on projects, working with one task or one project that's completed, moving on to the next for quality reasons, quality assurance and accuracy. They don't want to have to go back and do it over again. They want to provide notice of deadlines to themselves for their projects and to their customers, so that there's that under promise, over deliver. Um, they need structure. They prefer that. They're motivated by that equal confidence and structure that everybody's on, moving to the same goal. And typically, consistent change is something that happens in every industry, but it's a demotivator when it's not presented where they can become, again, consistently the project experts or the product experts. And in some industries that we have focused on today's call, is that industry knowledge is key, product knowledge is key, staying on top of that so that they know when recalls or when updates are done or when there's new changes that they can excite their clients with all of the new styles and brands and what they offer. What's that differentiation piece? What sets that aside? And how that meets their clients' needs or expectations or their desires. That's what makes that's what makes the sales culture. It's not selling the new and the greatest. It's finding out and having a conversation of what is important to that customer. Is it time? Is it safety? Is it money? Or is it all? And then giving them that feedback. So going to the demotivators and continuing on with that as the unavailable managers, so that when that service, finance, any support person on the team doesn't have that go-to person, whether it's a manager or a buddy or another subject matter expert, if they don't have that, then they kind of get stuck, and that's frustrating, as it would be for anybody. Where the salesperson might just be like, oh, I'll get back to that later. Not that important. I'll call the customer back, or they might just say, well, we'll get to that, or they might overlook it completely. So there's those differences and those conflicts or rubs, and they're really just differences. And demotivators are meeting and greet with uh, maybe events or things like that. So I'm going to go over some helpful tips that will definitely help in different industries. But I wanted to dive a little bit more into another story where the differences and hopefully painting a picture so you guys can identify, everybody on the call can identify different scenarios, and then giving you some really good, and a lot of it has to do with verbiage when creating a sales culture. So I was at a trade show years ago with our VP analyst. And so very introverted. When I say introverted, it's not like she was shy. It's just a matter of she wasn't standing at the ledge of the trade show booth talking with different people as they went by. But as people came up, was absolutely thrilled, exhilarated, and excited to share her knowledge with people's questions. Myself, on the other hand, I was out in front and not in the middle of the aisle, but very close to be able to pull in people, hey, that's an interesting, book that you have, or how's that hors d'oeuvre, and bringing them in and having a conversation and kind of reeling them in, where she was like more, that wasn't as assertive or aggressive. By the end of the show, I felt like it was the best show I'd been to. I was absolutely thankful and thrilled that I had the VP analyst with me, because very analytical, new product back-end information on behavioral things and development and specifics that were awesome, that I'm not privy to every day. So it was very productive. We had more business conversations, new relationships built than we had in a lot of different conferences in that same industry for the years past. So I was thankful that she was there. But it was interesting because her perspective on the flight home was, Carol and I was mortified the whole time. I'm like, why? Why were you mortified? She's like, I was so scared you were going to ask me to come up there and stand with you and talk to those people, to all the people. She's, when they come up to me, it's fine. So it's really looking at that dynamic and being able to see that there's those different types of people, personal dynamics in every department within your organization or section of your organization and company, and really seeding it and cultivating it the right way. So, for example, earlier on, my verbiage when I was talking about what excites and exhilarates a salesperson is they want to be able to meet their numbers. They like a challenge. Let me talk to the customers, find out their needs, find their pain, and dig in. If you said that to a service person and their different preferences, they would be just like my senior VP analyst. They'd be mortified. They'd say, no, I am not going to have that conversation with the client. with our customer. It has to be worded with, try to refer sales activities not as sales. Try to refer to um, more consultative, product sharing, safety standards, and using words like this is, may I make a recommendation, or my recommendation would be. Instead of saying we have a special on, or flushing out this system, or a new app for your uh, CEO, SEO, search engine optimization, um, social media products. You don't want to go into a special or um, anything like that. The verbiage would be more of, from what I've found in my analysis or my needs analysis or my inspection, my recommendation would be, here's the list of the things that I would recommend. And a priority system is very good for these types of folks too, because we don't know, they may not have the time to spend like salespeople on the front end do in service, to go through an hour days and know everything about these people. They probably know their lives in and out, and know some of their family members too. It depends. And clients and colleagues when they do, depending on what industry you're in, visits to the office and such. So you have a limited time and support as to when you're implementing something, or post-sales support, is to potentially give a list of what's recommended. Prioritize them. If I were to prioritize these would be my first priorities. Here's the cost. Here's the things that I would have done. Typically within this time frame, it's not urgent. And here are the things that if you were to consider full overview within the next, 6 months, or, giving them that full kind of, I don't say menu, but that prioritized list. Customers will say, oh, well, I thought I already did that. And then addressing that right then. Don't set that aside. Well, let's talk about that. Well, it looks like you did, and they can address it at that time. So that way, it's not sales, but it's really having a good conversation in service, post-sales, where the expectation and the conversation is more needs-based, where it might not be a huge need for that customer at the time to address all of these things in a certain amount of time, and giving them, over the time of when they're going to be using the different products, or where they're going to be using them, and where they're going to be stopping, and things like that, giving them more of that support, and having them come back. And that's the thing too, is saying, let's address these 3 things now, because it's what you need and want, and you can do. And then when you come back, and make it more of a visit and a comeback. That's where I found in my research and time working in many different industries, from advertising to RV dealerships to the healthcare industry and education sectors specifically as well, is that the clients that come back aren't just there to get things fixed or to revisit. They're there because it's part of their plan. And that's where the sales culture really becomes fine-tuned, because then the service folks can talk about, and this is the thing, is recommend or talk about the next, have they met with, and do they know about the new model that's coming out in 15, or the new product that's coming out, potentially launched in 2016. No, they're going to be jazzed and energized about that. So it's that seed planting too, that the service folks are really helpful. And this at all is not sales, because they're looking at this as helping. They're being very consultative, and they're using verbiage that is questions oriented. Now, if you have, on the other hand, coworkers or people and that aren't necessarily that front end client oriented a lot, maybe only half the time or less, then just having some reminders, of when you're coaching them, of using recommendation, service plans, product updates, things like that. So they're just letting them know. And then the customer or client can ask questions, and as questions come up, they're the subject matter experts. So they have to be powered with, in the back pocket of knowledge of these things. So if you were to really make a priority list for yourself, one would watch your language. That sounds bad. I'm a mom too. Watch your language. But no, watch your language and how you present your verbiage. presenting your verbiage correctly in non-sales, non-threatening language, recommendation, suggestion. Tell me more about that. That's the type of language you need to be using with support non-sales folks. It's just less threatening, and it's not so pushy. And even your sales folks might want to try using that type of verbiage as well, because that's where it becomes very consultative and less threatening. And then that feeling of that salesperson in your face doesn't work it doesn't work anymore. I think our business folks and our people we work with are much more savvy. Our clients and our customers are much more savvy. Not that than they used to be, but we just have so much more information at our fingertips than ever before and in any other time period. So having that, I'm a proponent for sales folks having a very soft verbiage or suggestive verbiage. It's as effective and aggressive as it can as they want to be as well. It's not high pressure. But also, so that's number one. Number two is product knowledge. If you take a salesperson into a product knowledge hour meeting, they're not going to be energized about that. So it has to be quick with them, so know your audience. But when you're looking, and that helps them power to really be able to connect with the clients quickly and not aggressively, not to share the product knowledge, but to be aware of it so they can match the needs to their clients. But then on the service team and development team, product knowledge is key. It makes them experts. That's what energizes them. That's how they're able to really make those recommendations because they have to believe. They have to believe. So in the second bullet point, explain how they're offering. There's no risk. That will help the client. There's not a risk. If the client doesn't say, yes, sign me up, there's no repercussion. It's not that they have to have that quota. They might have a point system and a team point system. That's fun versus a quota. Again, it's back to verbiage. But moving into the second thing is the product knowledge is key and making sure that there's set times that you have either guest speakers coming in because they don't want to always hear it from the same person, from different vendors or different departments. That's key too. Different departments. If F&I comes in and service team comes in and talks about some things that they've been seeing on the service side or development side that they're doing and some updates they're doing or changes they're going through, the salespeople will be like, oh, well, that's going to impact how I present or the timeframes I present this to my clients. So having those types of interdepartmental, not necessarily meetings, but product updates and information, product knowledge updates is key. And then also maybe even rewarding people with points of some sort that lead to some initiative that makes sense for your organization is how much product knowledge time they've updated. If they read a trade magazine, did they take and if you don't have time within the work hours, reward them if they do some professional development time or give them an opportunity to have professional development time at some point, whether it's in the work week or at the end of the month or quarterly, to really be able to invest that in your people. Not only helps you create that sales culture and take the service and really implement them to be able to be excellent salespeople post sale in the beginning. It also keeps them retained as employees because they're happy. They feel like you're investing in them long term. So there's a lot of different things that happen when you focus on this type of culture. And also, it helps with the after sales assistance. The expectations that the customer have been set up by the salespeople, hopefully. And if not, then it can be addressed at the time of what to expect on delivering or servicing and supporting that customer. But it's taking that time as a service support person to find out a little bit about their client and their needs. And sometimes it's even best if another tip is to maybe have the salesperson kind of brief them, brief the service team or finance team or development team or something on the customer and what their perceptions are of their needs and maybe some background. It could be a conversation, it could be an email, it could be a quick code system. It just depends. That's a tip that worked really good for a couple branch office we were doing some projects with. and coach them on identifying clients' needs and urgencies. It could be through casual conversation on the front end for the salespeople, but typically when we're looking at helping coach the support um, team members, is making sure that it feels natural. So the urgency through casual conversation is, it might sound something like, um, this is lower priority, and say it's a lower, say you have it a high priority on that list we had talked about earlier. These are the top 3 things you need to do. These are the things you should do within the next 3 months, and these are the things you can do at some point within the next year or so. And the client's like, I'm not going to really do that. And this service person isn't looking at this as a financial gain. It's not saying, oh, but I really want to do this because my points or my commission will be this. That's not their train of thought. They'll never think that way. And so don't try to, that's what's in it for them in coaching them. But the safety standard, or what if there's a recall that is going to be coming within a certain amount of time, or maybe there's a new product coming out, and if they're going to do all these changes to something, why not wait till that new product out? And as I say urgency, don't wait 3 months. This new thing is going to be coming out, so this is a great opportunity to get these 2 things done. So it's being more strategic through casual conversation. Having these conversations about specific things and with the product knowledge to be able to incorporate that. They have to believe it. So that urgency through casual conversation leads back to tying it to their beliefs. They have to say, well, it doesn't make sense, and this is how they're going to say this to customers potentially, is it doesn't make sense really to do that, and this is why. If we wait 3 months, it's actually going to potentially cost you more money and time, or it's not going to meet what you're looking to do in 6 months. Whereas we have this, that if you did it, we have that opportunity to do that now, and it's going to save you this time, this money, and these resources. Doesn't that makes more sense to me? How about you? The customer's like, well, yeah, but, and they would either go, yeah, but, and then talk about something they weren't aware of, or they'd say, yeah, thanks a lot. I didn't even realize that. And then there you have it. You have that sales culture through that casual conversation. And so really, it's not a matter of urgency and pushing it. And I use the analogy, no one in sales or in service can push a rope. Now, in sales, they'll try to push a rope and they'll just get frustrated. But service and support, they won't, because it's they're not going to push. But what you can do, what feels good and what feels natural, is to pull, is to say, well, let me explain this to you. Let me be the expert and show you. Does this make sense? Yes, it does. Does this not make sense? No, it doesn't. You need to see the sale as a service and have the confidence in the product and its value. So if you have somebody in the service that has a bias to a particular brand, and I know there's service people out there that say this brand is bad, I see it break all the time, I'm not putting it on there, why do we keep buying this? Um, this is something that is in management and leadership should really address with these service folks, because it could be a technique, or it really could be that they're not a big fan of this. So they have to see the confidence in the product. And sometimes they have confidence in all the products. And that's, again, where product knowledge goes into play. If there's a better price point for one product that they think is not as isn't as high as quality, then, give them you on the back end know the price margin, make sure it makes sense. And if they have a bias to one particular one, let them, have those options. But on the back end, do what you need to do to make sure that you're going to meet the needs of your organization and your dealership. And then that way, giving the service team that, instead of trying to put a square peg in a round hole, saying, no, we're only going to use these parts for this month. It doesn't create that environment where they feel like they have the autonomy and the expertise to really do what's in the best interest of their customers and the clients. So if you give them some parameters, like, okay, sure, I see that you oftentimes do this and this and this. There's a reason why they do, because in their mind and services mind, they like that, they believe in it more, it's a thorough, better job, they were trained that way. And we're finishing up a little bit early. So those are the tips. If there's ever any additional questions, I know we've been talking a lot about creating a sales culture. Obviously, that was today's presentation. But also, I know that there's been a big push for candidates and recruiting and things like that. within dealerships. I've been getting calls across the United States to help figure out the best practices and some creative ways for recruiting and retaining um, your service folks. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions on what we talked about today, any specifics to personal preferences and behavioral traits. The better you know your team, ultimately, the better your team is going to perform. And knowing their communication style, their preferences, and what motivates them and demotivates them is king for your trainings and your success, and also for retaining and recruiting your folks as well. Well, my email address is there, and my direct telephone is listed here. I'm going to keep it up for a few more minutes. Thank you.